The void existed. It was neither light nor dark, neither hot nor cold. It simply was, and within it she dwelled. She had no name, for names were a concept yet to be born. She had no form, for matter was still a dream in the cosmic womb. She was awareness itself, floating in the non-existence that preceded all. And then, in an instant that stretched for eternity, everything changed. The universe exploded into being. Light and darkness, heat and cold, matter and energy, all burst forth in a cacophony of creation. She watched, fascinated, as galaxies swirled into existence, as stars ignited and planets coalesced. And with creation came the creators. Gods, they called themselves. Beings of immense power, shaping reality to their whims. They crafted realms of wonder and beauty, carving out corners of the cosmos to call their own. She observed as these gods created life. Countless species sprouted across the universe, each guided by their divine shepherds. The gods cherished their creations, offering paradise to those who pleased them. But soon, a problem arose. What of those who displeased the gods? What of the souls deemed unworthy of paradise? The gods squabbled amongst themselves, unwilling to taint their perfect realms with the unworthy, and in their indecision she saw an opportunity. She, who had watched since before time began, would create a realm for the forsaken. With a thought, she carved out a portion of reality. It was a harsh place, a crucible where the rejected souls of the universe would face their eternal sentence. The gods, relieved to have a solution, quickly agreed to send their unwanted to her domain. And so, the cycles of afterlives began. Souls flowed into her realm from across the cosmos. Each species brought with them their own concepts of punishment and suffering, and her domain shifted to accommodate them all. For some, it was a realm of fire and brimstone. For others, a frozen wasteland of endless night. Some faced personalized torments, while others simply experienced the aching void of isolation. She watched it all with detached curiosity. The suffering of these souls was not personal, it was simply the natural order. The unworthy must face consequences, after all. Eons passed, and the routine remained unchanged. Souls arrived, suffered, and eventually faded into nothingness. The gods continued their grand game of creation and judgment, secure in the knowledge that the unworthy had a place to go. But then, something unexpected happened. On a small, blue planet in an unremarkable galaxy, a new species emerged. They were not the creation of any god, but rather the result of cosmic chance and the relentless march of evolution. Humans, they called themselves. At first, she paid them no mind. They were just another species in the vast tapestry of existence, but as their civilization grew, she began to take notice. These humans were different. They created their own gods, crafting elaborate mythologies and belief systems. They pondered the nature of existence, grappling with concepts of morality and afterlife without divine guidance. And when they died, they all came to her. The first human souls arrived in a trickle, then a stream, and finally a flood. Unlike the other species, who arrived prejudged by their deities, the humans came raw and unfiltered. She watched, intrigued, as they faced her realm. The humans experienced the same harsh conditions as all other souls. They faced fire and ice, pain and isolation. But where other species had crumbled under the weight of eternal torment, the humans adapted. In the fiery pits, they learned to endure the heat. In the icy wastes, they huddled together for warmth. In the lonely voids, they reached out to one another, forming connections even in the bleakest of circumstances. She observed as the first human communities began to form. Unlike the rigid hierarchies of the divine realms, these were chaotic, ever-changing things. Leaders rose and fell based on their ability to help others survive the harsh conditions. And then, something truly unprecedented occurred. The humans began to build. Using materials scavenged from the very landscape of torment, they constructed shelters. Crude at first, little more than piles of rock, to block the winds of suffering, but growing more sophisticated with each passing moment. She watched in fascination as they discovered the properties of brimstone, learning to forge it into tools. They tamed the rivers of fire, using them to power primitive machines. They cultivated the twisted plants that grew in the ashen soil, creating farms in the midst of desolation. For the first time in her eternal existence, she felt something akin to surprise. Her realm had always been a place of stasis, of eternal, unchanging torment. But these humans were transforming it, reshaping it through sheer force of will and ingenuity. She sent her servants beings of smoke and shadow that had existed since the realm's creation to tear down the human constructions. It was not out of malice, but simply to maintain the natural order of things. But the humans rebuilt. Every time her servants destroyed a settlement, the humans would construct a new one, often larger and more resilient than before. They learned from each failure, adapting their techniques to better withstand the forces arrayed against them. As more humans arrived, they brought with them the knowledge and advancements of their earthly civilizations. Scientists unraveled the supernatural laws that governed her realm. Engineers designed structures that could withstand even the most cataclysmic of her realm's phenomena. She watched as great cities began to rise from the ash and bone. Towers of obsidian and brimstone stretched towards the crimson skies. Networks of tunnels and caverns provided shelter from the harsh surface conditions. Human ingenuity turned instruments of torment into tools of survival and progress. The rivers of fire became sources of endless energy. The choking sulfur clouds were harnessed for their mineral content. Even the wails of the damned were transformed into a haunting form of music. Vast nations began to form, each with their own unique culture and governance. The Obsidian Empire rose in the heart of the fiery wastes, its cities built from cooled magma. The Froston Confederacy sprawled across the icy tundras, its people having mastered the art of thermal engineering. She observed as human history began to play out once more in her realm. Visionaries led people to new frontiers. Tyrants rose and fell. A rich tapestry of art, literature, and philosophy bloomed in the most unlikely of places. But it was not all progress and enlightenment. For wherever humans went, conflict followed. Wars erupted between the nascent nations of the underworld. Armies clashed on battlefields of ash and bone, wielding weapons powered by hellfire and human hatred. Ancient grudges from the world of the living found new expression in eternal combat. She watched these conflicts with a mixture of horror and fascination. Never in all of creation had she witnessed such carnage, such brutality. Humans brought more suffering upon themselves than she could ever have devised. Generals who had faced each other in life found themselves leading opposing forces once more in death. Soldiers who had died in the trenches of one war awoke to find themselves in new, even more terrifying forms of combat. Yet even in the midst of this self-inflicted hell, moments of breathtaking beauty emerged. She saw enemies who had killed each other in life now working together to survive the horrors of her realm. Acts of sacrifice and compassion bloomed like delicate flowers in fields of ash. Love, that most human of emotions, found a way to thrive even in the harshest of conditions. As she observed all of this, she felt something she had never experienced before. A warmth, a fondness for these bizarre, contradictory creatures. Their capacity for cruelty was matched only by their ability to love. Their despair was equaled by their hope. For the first time in her eternal existence, she began to change. No longer content to merely observe, she found herself intervening in small ways. A subtle shift in the landscape here, a momentary calming of a firestorm there. Nothing overt, nothing that would disrupt the grand experiment that human civilization in her realm had become. But enough to show that she was no longer indifferent to their struggles. Her servants, once tasked with tormenting the damned, now found themselves assigned new roles. Some became guardians, protecting fledgling human settlements from the worst of the realm's dangers. Others became guides, helping newly arrived souls navigate the treacherous landscape. As news of these changes spread, the gods took notice. Many were outraged at this deviation from the natural order. Some demanded that she return to her role as impartial warden of the damned. Others sought to claim a piece of her realm for themselves, seeing the potential in these human souls. But she would not yield. When gods sent their armies to carve out territories in her domain, they found themselves facing not just her power, but the combined might and ingenuity of human civilization. Divine warriors fell before cannons that fired bolts of condensed sorrow. Celestial magics were countered by human technologies powered by the very essence of the underworld. In the face of this united front, even the gods were forced to retreat. Her realm, once a cosmic dumping ground, was now a sovereign nation, standing equal to the divine realms of paradise. As eons passed, her relationship with humanity deepened. She was no longer seen as a distant, uncaring warden, but as a protector, a nurturing force that allowed human potential to flourish in the unlikeliest of places. Humans began to give her names, to create myths and legends about her origins. Some saw her as a rebel god, who had turned her back on divine cruelty to side with the damned. Others believed she was the personification of human resilience, born from the collective will of all who had overcome the torments of the afterlife. She accepted these stories with amusement, knowing that the truth was both simpler and more complex than any human myth could capture. She was as she had always been, the observer, the constant. But now, she was also something more, as a participant in the grand story of human existence. Her realm, once a place of eternal torment, had become something else entirely. It was still harsh, still dangerous, but it was also a place of opportunity, a place where the human spirit could be tested, could grow and evolve beyond the limits of mortal existence. And so, when new souls arrived at the gates of her realm, confused and afraid, she would greet them herself, not with fire and brimstone, but with a gentle smile and an outstretched hand. "Welcome," she would say, her voice carrying the weight of eternity and the warmth of newfound love. "Welcome to your new beginning." For in her realm, all humans were welcome, not to suffer, but to strive, not to be punished, but to be challenged, not to face torment, but to find unprecedented freedom. In her realm, hell had become home. And as she looked out over the ever-changing landscape of her domain, watched the ceaseless ebb and flow of human civilization, she felt something she had never expected to experience: his contentment. For she, who had been alone since before time began, was now part of something greater. A vast, eternal story of struggle, triumph, and boundless potential. The story of humanity. A story that would continue to unfold in all its terrible beauty and magnificent contradiction for as long as her realm existed. Which, if she had anything to say about it, would be forever.